We are busy with the topic of geometry of straight lines. We are going to focus in this lesson on angles on intersecting lines. First, a bit of terminology. We need to know what the transversal is. It's any straight line that intersects two more lines. So here we have one straight line. We have another straight line. And it is intersected by another straight line. So that straight line that intersects the two other straight lines, we refer to that as the transversal. So this line in red intersects, because intersects means cross. Okay, so we have this line that cross or intersect the two yellow lines, and that is what we call a transversal. So transversal intersects two other straight lines. So it's a straight line that intersects or crosses two other straight lines. So that's what we refer to as a transversal. Now that we know what transversals are, let's look at a few angle properties of transversals. So we have what we refer to as alternating angles. So let's first just look at what the word alternate means. If I'm saying I will give every alternate learner a chocolate, it means it will be every second learner. So if I let you stand in a line and I give every alternate one, it would be every second one, not every consecutive one. So kind of alternate refers to switching. So that's the meaning of alternate. So it actually have a precise English meaning that corresponds with the maths meaning. Because what happens is we have the intersection that we have seen in the previous slide, the definition of an intersection. It crosses two straight lines. Okay, so we have the intersection. Now notice we have this angle here indicated in red on the left hand side of the intersection, and on the other side, the right hand side, we have another angle in red. So these two angles we refer to as alternating because they are on opposite sides of the transversal. The one is on the left side, the other on the right side of the transversal. What is also important that you need to note is it's between the two other lines. So this angle is inside and this angle is inside the two other lines, but it's on opposite sides of the transversal. That's what we refer to as alternating angles. Now we could indicate another pair of alternating angles. Oops, it's not where I want it to be. This is where I want to be. So we could look, for example, at this angle here. It's to the left of the transversal. If you alternating it or switch it on the other side of the transversal, you also have an angle. They are therefore switching sides, but both are inside the parallel lines. So this is what we call alternating angles. So we have here two sets of alternating angles. Okay, so then I just want to go back here. We can also refer to this alternating angles as the so-called Z shape. Can you see we have a Z shape here in blue? I can also indicate in black the Z shape here. So we look for Z shapes to identify pairs of alternating angles. Now we get to what we refer to as corresponding angles. These two red angles are corresponding, and again it is English. If you know the English meaning, it helps you with the maths. It's very descriptive because correspond mean matching. If you have shoes that match, you can refer to corresponding shoes. Okay, so matching shoes. Okay, so let's see, how does these two angles correspond? Well, you can see here we have a blue line. This angle is below the blue line. Here we have another blue line. The angle is below it. So they correspond or match in the first case in that they are both below the other two blue lines. Then, secondly, they correspond in the sense, can you see this angle here at the top is to the right hand side of the transversal. Similarly, this red angle here, you guess it, yes, it's to the right side of the transversal. So corresponding angles matches or correspond in two ways. First, if you look at the transversal, they will be both to the right of the transversal in this particular case. If you look at the other lines that you need to get the intersecting line, they will be, in this particular case, both matching in the sense that they are below. So this is also what we refer to as the so-called F shape. So you try to identify F shapes to identify corresponding angles. So you can see this is our F shape. Now there are some other corresponding angles. For example, you can look at this angle here and this angle here. They are corresponding. Let's see how they correspond in the two ways. If we look at our transversal, okay, let's just extend our transversal. Let's just make it longer. Okay, assume that's a straight line. Okay, so if we look at our transversal, they are both to the left of the transversal. So they are matching or corresponding in the sense that they are both to the left. They are also matching in the extent that if you look at the two other lines that we need to form the transversal, this one is above it. This angle here is also above it. So that's yet another way in how they are corresponding. We can even find other corresponding angles. For example, this angle here corresponds with this angle here. How? They are both to the right hand side of our transversal. They are both on top of the other two lines that we need to form the transversal. We even have another one. I wonder if you guys can already identify it. It's this one and this one. So they are both to the left of the transversal. They are both matching in that they are below the other lines that form the transversal. So this is what we refer to corresponding angles, our F shape. So here, our F shape, for example, just look the other way around. We could color in this in green and this in green. So it's just like the other way around F than this one, a back-to-back F. You can do the same with the yellow and the black as well. Okay, so Next, we focus on what we call the co-interior angles. Again, the English perfectly explains to you what the maths is all about. So let's first think of co. Have you ever heard of co-pilots? So you think of the plane, you have co-pilots, you have more than one pilot, you have two pilots. So if something goes wrong, you at least have a backup. Interior. I'm sure all of you have heard of interior decorators. It's people that make the inside of a building or a house beautiful. That's their job. So it's about inside, interior, inside. Co means both. So if you look at these two red angles, they are both inside the two lines that we need to form this transversal. So they are both inside the lines that forms the transversal, and there are two of them. And they are also on the same side of the transversal, in this case to the left. So inside the lines that forms the transversal, both also to the left of the transversal in this particular case, co-interior angles. This is what we refer to as the U shape. So you identify U shapes to find co-interior angles. There are another pair of co-interior angles. We can look at this U shape here. And then we have these two angles. They are both inside the lines that we need to form the transversal. They are both to the right of the transversal, therefore co-interior angles. Okay, now what's very important, we know how to define the various angles and name them. Now what's important, you can see we have here our Z shape, So this is in fact therefore an alternating angles. Here we have another Z shape, just this way around. Okay, but now what's important, you see arrows here, arrows. So in this particular case, the two lines that form the intersection are parallel. In the previous examples, they weren't parallel. Now what's important, alternating angles on parallel lines are equal. So this angle here and this angle here are equal because these two lines are parallel. In the previous examples, we couldn't say they are equal. We could just say the two of them form together alternating angles, but we couldn't say they are equal. But now, since we have parallel lines, we can see this and this angle, we can actually say they are in fact equal. Okay, so we have here our F shapes, So we have the F shapes, so it's the corresponding angles, okay, the matching angles here, both to the left of the transversal, both below, in this case, again, parallel lines. Here, both above the parallel lines, both to the left of the transversal. Here, both to the right of the parallel lines, both on top of the parallel lines. Here, both to the right of the transversal, both below the parallel lines. So in this case, since we have parallel lines, we can say these corresponding angles are equal. Previously, when we don't have parallel lines, we couldn't say they are equal. We could just say this and this angle form corresponding angles. But now, since we have a parallel lines, they are in fact equal. Then finally we have our U shape, which we know is our co-interior ones. Here we have another one. oops, it's actually this side. If we want to focus on A and B, we actually have this U shape and this U shape. They are both angles inside. They are both on the same side of the transversal. Here also, both on the same side of the transversal, both inside the lines. In this case, parallel lines. So that's what's added now. So now, the thing is, if there weren't parallel lines, we could just say they are co-interior angles. But now, since they are parallel lines, they are parallel lines as well, we can say that the co-interior angles are in fact supplementary, meaning adding up to 180. So angle A plus B is 180 degrees. Similar here, angle A plus B is equal to 180 degrees. So now with our newfound knowledge, let's do some activities. So exercise 12.2, in some of your books, it's the newer books, it's 10.2. Number 1, for each of these diagrams, classify the pair of marked angles as corresponding, co-interior, or alternate or vertical opposite. Vertical opposite, remember in our previous lesson we focus on that. Also state if they are equal or not. Okay, so do we have parallel lines? No, there are no arrows. Okay, what shape do we see here? Okay, this is the shape I see here. Z shape, eh? So if we see Z shape, what angles do we have? Alternating. They are on different sides of the transversal, but both inside the lines that forms the transversal. So you switch, they are switch on the transversal. So it is what we refer to as alternating angles. And alt angles is perfectly acceptable abbreviation in maths for alternating angles. And they are not equal because there is no indication that this line is parallel. Okay, so B, let's have a look here. What shape do we have here? I see the F shape. Okay, so I see the F shape here. Let's do it like this, just to make it a bit clearer. So we have the F shape. So we have, if we think F shape, we think corresponding angles. It corresponds in two ways. We have the transversal cutting the other two lines. They are both on the same side of the transversal. They are both below, in this case, the other two lines. So they are matching in that two important aspects, and we refer to it as corresponding angles. So you can perfectly acceptable abbreviate it as corresponding angles. So you don't have to write out, you can just abbreviate. In this case, they are not equal because there's no indication that these lines are parallel, but we know they are corresponding. Okay, so number C. What do we have here? I see we have this line. And then we have this line. They are crossing, in other words, intersecting. We have red, we have blue. We have blue, we have red. They are opposite, they are not adjacent, non-adjacent. So they are staring at each other. What do we call those again? Vertically opposite angles. This is the perfect abbreviation. Don't have to write out vertical opposite angles. And they are in fact equal. Because vertical opposite angles are always equal. You don't need to know about whether they are parallel lines or not. They are always equal. But the U, the F, and the Z shape, to be equal, you need parallel lines. Well, in fact, the F and the Z shape. For the U shape, it will just mean if there's parallel lines, they are supplementary. In other words, adding up to 180 degrees, the angles. The co-interior angles. So let's move on to number 2. Number B. Well, let's just first read the question. Determine the size of the angles marked A to E in these diagrams, giving reasons for all your statements. So here I see we have a B. I see we have parallel lines. What kind of shape do we have? Let's see. What shape do we have? Zorro, Z shape. Okay. What do we refer to as the Z shape? Yes, alternating. They alternate in two ways. We have actually alternating in one way. We have the transversal. It's on opposite sides of the transversal. One is on top of the transversal, the other one is to the bottom, but they are also in between the other two lines, in this case parallel lines, and if and only if they are in between parallel lines, we can say that these alternating angles are equal. So we can in fact say B equals 100 degrees. We now need a reason. What is our reason? Alternating angles. Perfect accepted abbreviation. Okay, so let's see. D, what shape do we have here? Okay, I see the F shape. Okay, so if I look at this angle and this angle, here we have our transversal. This one is below the one line. This one is below the other line that forms the transversal, so they match in that way. Here we have our intersection. They are both on top of the intersection, on the same side of the intersection, so they match in that way. So we refer to them as corresponding angles, since they match in two ways. And furthermore, since we have parallel lines, we can also say they are equal. So we can in fact say D equals 75 degrees, reason being corresponding angles. Perfectly acceptable abbreviation here. Number E. What shape do we have here? Our U or C shape. So we have these two angles. They are both inside the lines that forms the transversal, or that's required for the transversal. They are both to the right hand side of the transversal. It is two angles. It's what we refer to as co, because there are two. They are inside, so it's interior, so it's co-interior angles. We know co-interior angles are supplementary or add up to 180 degrees. So we can make the statement E plus 135 degrees equals 180 degrees. Reason being co-interior angles. Gr8 angles, perfect abbreviation. Don't have to write out co-interior angles. Now we can solve. We have the letter of the alphabet on its own. The plus 135 is on the wrong side. Swim through the river. Join the 180. The 180 is perfectly on the correct side. So don't have to change any sign. But this plus needs to become minus. So we have 180 degrees minus 135 degrees, which gives us 45 degrees. So we just solved E by making use of co-interior angles since we have parallel lines. And we have our U or C shape. So now your task is to do exercise 12.2, number 1D, number 1E, number 1F, as well as number 2A and number 2C.